Hello, everyone. This is a recording of the 80/20 learning event that I delivered in March 2026. So, I'm going to be speaking about why your marketing isn't delivering ROI and how to fix it. So, let's start with a few statistics. 67% of SMEs operate without a marketing plan. This is research that was done by Marketing Week. 49% of small business owners aren't sure whether their marketing efforts are effective, and 14% know they are not effective. What are those 14% doing? 20% admit they have no idea what's working, and nearly two-thirds, about 65% of SMEs, manage marketing in-house, often by the owner or a generalist rather than specialists. So, this should give you a bit of an outline of the kind of challenges that exist within the marketing world and marketing within the SME arena. So, staying in line with stats, every day, on average, you see between 3,000 and 25,000 marketing messages. Now, admittedly, this is a bit of an old statistic. These numbers have been around for quite some time, and I do believe that they have changed significantly. If you think about whatever room you're in, wherever you are right now, if you look around, there will be branding and some kind of marketing messaging coming through. If you think about when you open up your phone, all the apps are screaming for your attention. When you open up social media, there's messaging everywhere. You have to have touched base with a brand a minimum of 11 times, have a need or a want for it, and that's when you're going to take action. Also, that statistic, 11 times, I also believe that has increased significantly as well. But this is kind of what the general average is that historically that we've worked to. But as we are coming across more noise, and more information, and there are more digital channels, that is obviously going to increase. So, but let's, for argument's sake, for the sake of this presentation, let's work with 11 times. And this is where return on investment starts. But why does return on investment feel so elusive? So, a few common reasons that we come across. People confusing activity with strategy, having a website and running social media alongside it isn't necessarily strategy. It's activity, it's tactics. And often these things operate in silos. No clear measurable objectives. If you're not measuring, yes, a big measurement is return on investment. Yes, a measurement is the number of leads coming in, but there are so many more things that you should measure, and they need to be clear. The kind of things that you're looking at need to be clear, they need to be logged, and they need to be reviewed regularly. Another reason, no clear defined target audience. Now, really, this one I think should go first because it's such a common issue that I see. I see people not having written down clear defined target audience information. And without that, yes, you can say that your service is something that is there and available to anyone that wants it. That's fine. But the more you can define the requirements of a specific kind of person, the more you can define your messaging to the challenges and pain points so you can speak to them directly. Let's have a look at another one, disconnected channels. I kind of mentioned this in the first point, but if you've got your websites and your socials and your sales and they're not aligned and the messaging is different across each one, that's often one of the reasons why ROI doesn't you do not get the ROI at the end of the process, because really what you want is a scenario where if you've got a potential client and they see the messaging on the website and in email marketing you might send them and social media or anywhere else perfectly aligned with the messaging that people get when, say, a human is speaking to you on the other end of the phone. There needs to be that perfection. There needs to be that perfect alignment between all of these, all the channels you're using that pushes the prospect into being a customer. And finally, another reason of many, but there's only five today, the wrong things being measured, like traffic, impressions, likes instead of momentum and intent. I've used the word instead of there. Likes, traffic, and impressions are an important measurement, but it's not the only thing. You need to be looking at the overall feel for everything that's happening and how that's positively impacting your brand being developed and grown. So let's have a look at a traditional sales funnel. Now, this is a process that we all go through whether you're buying a packet of gum or whether you're buying a house. But with buying a packet of gum, it might take a very short amount of time. If you're buying a house, it could take months, could take years, could take decades. So I'm going to quickly talk you through it with an example that I always use. Let's say I'm in the market for a new car. My car's broken down and I am thinking, okay, right, I might buy a BMW or I might buy an Audi. I'm in the awareness stage. I'm a middle-aged man, so I'm being targeted for a specific model of BMW or Audi. I'm aware that these products exist, and I'm aware that I have a desire for them, so I'm ready to move further. So I go into the consideration stage. The consideration stage is where I might say go to the website, check out each of the models for the two manufacturers. I'll then think, okay, I might be interested in an Audi A5 or a BMW 4 Series. I then go into the engagement stage. And at the engagement stage, that had involved me going into the showroom and test driving for both manufacturers, test driving each of the vehicles. And then I would go into the purchase stage and then say, okay, right, I'm going to buy an Audi A5. So I've basically gone down each of these stages and gone into the purchase stage, but it doesn't end there. I then go into the retention stage where, let's say 3 years later, Audi will contact me and say, Mr. Panesar, we have a new model. These are all the bells and whistles. This is the offer. Are you interested in buying one? So they're continuing to try to retain me as a client. So that's a really basic example of how a sales funnel, a traditional sales funnel will work. How that might translate into, let's say, a B2B service organization. Let's talk about the kind of channels and tactics you might use associated with that. So to build awareness, you might be getting your messaging out across social media and let's say PR. That's the kind of thing that's just showing people that you're regularly there. You're there and you're doing all these great things and you're talking about your products and your service and the values and the brand and the people behind it and all that good stuff. So then let's say your potential customer thinks, okay, right, I'm ready to buy your particular service. So let me go to the website. Once they've gone to the website and they go into the engagement stage, they might drop you an email or they might pick up the phone and call you or arrange a meeting. Then, let's say they go into the purchase stage, they might buy online or in person or however your transaction works. And then let's say, right, they're a customer now, you want to retain them. How do you do that? You might do that through customer service. Customer service, of course, is a very important marketing tool. If you're delivering a good service, you're going to retain them and they're going to continue buying from you. Or let's say email marketing, if you're drip feeding your message and cross-selling whatever additional services that you know you can deliver to them. So that's the traditional sales funnel. There is a new line of thought. This is a model that's just been released by Google. Now, I know it looks like something that a 5-year-old might have created, but what the thinking here is that let me talk you through it. You have your initial trigger, whatever it is, of wanting to purchase a product or a service. You then go into the exploration stage where you're going to start researching things. You're going to start looking at your options. You're going to start looking around whatever the channels are. You're then going to circle through to the evaluation stage and start narrowing down your options based on whatever research you've done, whether it's reviews or looking at what people are saying on social media or what they're saying or whatever the service benefits are. And then typically, according to the traditional sales funnel, you would go to the purchase stage. But in this circumstance, actually, you go back round to exploration and start looking at other options. And then you start evaluating and narrow it down further. And you go round and round and round and round. And then you go into the purchase stage at some point. So whereas the traditional sales funnel is much more linear, what we're in a situation of now is we're actually just going round and round and round in circles before we come out, which actually makes it so much harder from a marketing perspective because it means you've got to have a lot more information out there that's talking about all the good stuff that you do and have lots of people saying good things about you. So that's the messy middle. But the thing with ROI is everybody wants it now. Think about it. You make an investment, you want to get a return on it as quickly as possible. A bit like this lady. Remember Veruca Salt from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? She wanted everything now, and that's the reality. That's what we want. But sadly, that's not how marketing works. And that's why we've created Solar 7. which is a simple process to sense check whether your marketing is structurally sound, and it allows you to see the steps that you need to take. So let me talk you through Solar 7. Solar 7 is 7 stages to achieve return on investment. Let's start with stage 1. Stage 1 is discovery. That's where you'd sit down and get to understand everything about the organization, where you've been, where you are now, where you want to go, what your goals are. We'd look at who your competition are and who your audience are, and everything in between. It's all about really getting into the organization, under the skin of it, and really understanding it. Once we've got everything together for the discovery stage, we'd move on to the strategy stage. The strategy captures all activity that needs to take place in order to achieve the objectives or the goals that you set in the discovery stage. So, the strategy involves doing the homework and looking at all the competition and really developing those audience personas that we talked about and defining specifically who these people are so we know what kind of messaging we're putting in front of them. And the outcome from a strategy is a step-by-step plan of what's going to happen in each following month. So you know, right, we're in March now. This is what's going to happen in April. This is what's going to happen in May, June, July, August, next year, and so on and so on. So stage 3 is at the heart of the model, and that's the brand and content. Your brand is so much more than just a logo. Your brand is what you make people feel when they think of your brand, what kind of intrinsic value people have for your service or your product. And content is there as well. It's also about the messaging that you want to put out there, because of course I mentioned audience personas. You want to be able to get your message in front of that audience, and that message has to speak to that audience. So that's the brand, and that's at the heart of your model. Let's talk about stage 4, which is your website. And that's like the sun in your solar marketing system. So you've got your branding and your messaging, and you want to get that onto your website. So when people are checking you out, that it's confirming the kind of things that they need. And then you move on to stage 5, which is what we call the planets in your solar marketing system. And these are all the various channels that might drive traffic to your website. So we've got search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising, basically getting to the top of Google, social media marketing, email marketing, advertising, and PR. And the orange ring around each one of these says content. Just as the content and messaging is fundamental to the heart of your brand, your heart of your marketing, it's just as important to each one of the planets. For example, you could be posting on social media all day, every day, and just getting the wrong messaging out there and not getting any engagement. You need to have that core messaging that you want to get across. The arrows represent each of these working alongside each other, driving traffic to your website, and that's where your inquiries come in. Stage 6 is review and measure. So you want to see what's happening. You want to have a look at all your analytics and all your data, see what's working well, see what isn't working well, and take it and fine tune the stuff that's working well, get rid of the stuff that isn't working so well. And ultimately, that's what's going to lead you to return on investment. So this is Solar 7. This is a very broad overview of the process, a linear process, an almost linear process to go through. But do you remember the messy middle that I was talking about? Now imagine we take that messy middle and we replace the central points that I've just explained to you with the messy middle. So you still need your strategy. And what's happening is rather than people going through this linear format where they're going through whatever channel to your website and then making an inquiry, what they're doing is they're jumping around now, maybe from social media, reading a bit of PR, checking out some of your reviews, going to your website, looking at their options. And they'll be doing this with your competition as well. So even though the rules haven't changed, all these channels are still there, but it's just a little bit messier in the way that people go about it. What hasn't changed is that your brand is still fundamentally at the center of it. Building that brand is so important because people now have so many more options available to them. And if you're not building your brand and speaking directly to the audience that you want to sell to, the specific audience, you're basically not standing out from all the noise. The deeper you can connect inside people's internal beliefs and values and develop that intrinsic feeling for people, the more likelihood you are going to have for people to make that inquiry with you and buy from you. So let's talk about common mistakes that we see with some of these elements of the Solar 7 model. Let's talk about strategy. One of the most common mistakes I see is people confusing strategy with tactics. I've actually already mentioned this. A strategy is about aligning each of the tactics. It's about taking all of these separate components and making them all align with the brand and the same messaging and the specific people that you've outlined. Big mistake. Tactics are not strategy. Let's talk about mistakes we see with brand. People saying brand is just a logo. Brand is not just a logo. As I've said, it's about that intrinsic feel that people have and how people position it in their mind. If you think of Marks and Spencers versus Aldi, if you think of Rolls Royce versus Fiat, what I've just said, they're both cars. Marks and Spencers and Aldi are both supermarkets, but they have different positioning, different price points, different kind of beliefs in what the quality of it is and what you're getting for your money. And then no defined audience, that's a fundamental part of your brand. If you're trying to sell to everyone, you are not going to stand out from the noise. You have to specifically say, these are the types of people that we sell to that buy from us. Of course, if someone different comes along, you can still sell to them if you are capable of offering a service for them and adding value to them. But the more specific you are with the people that you want to service, the more likely you are to be able to take that blockage away and move them further through the process of buying from you. So, big mistake. Common mistakes we see with websites. There are so many that we see, but the one that always stands out is website messaging not being aligned with the audience. If your website is saying, welcome to our website, that's a complete waste of space because people know they're on your website. You want to speak directly to the audience's pain point. One thing I always say is you can have an average design website with fantastic wording and messaging, and that will perform so much better than a fantastic design with only average wording. So the message speaking to the audience, the words that you're using are so, so, so important. And we see that mistake a lot where people just really don't bring in a professional copywriter to write their copy. And then let's talk about common mistakes with the planets, with the channels. Inconsistency, basically not using them or just using the wrong channels. If you're a 50-year-old male, if you sell to 50-year-old males, and you are really pushing your TikTok, say, for it as a social media channel, the likelihood is you're not going to get much traction because TikTok has a much younger audience that is using it. So you need to make sure you're using the right channels. And really importantly, you need to be consistent. You need to be drip feeding your message consistently. And then review and measure. Measuring the mistakes that we see is people measuring vanity metrics only. So yes, it's nice to get likes. It's nice to get as many impressions as possible on social media. But if that's all you're measuring it by, you're not going to see much benefit from that because really you want to see a whole process of measurements that kind of trickle your prospects all the way through. Now, these are all common gaps that stop marketing delivering real growth. And I've only mentioned a few. So this goes to show that there's a whole series of usually quite small gaps that need to be tightened up. And that's where your real growth comes in. So measurements, let's talk a bit about, I've just mentioned measurements. Let's talk a little bit about measurements. What should you be measuring? At the front end, let's talk about impressions on social media. Your impressions are the number of times something that, has been seen, a post has been seen on social media. So let's say you get 1,000 impressions, it means it's been seen 1,000 times. And then you get reach, sticking on social media. Reach is all about unique people that have seen it. So you could get 1,000 impressions and have a reach of 500, which means 500 unique people have seen that 1,000 times. So you've had 1,000 impressions. Engagement. Everybody loves engagement on social media. It's all about the likes and the little love hearts and people commenting on stuff. That's a great thing to have. So that's another thing that people measure. And of course, website visits. Now, all of these are at the beginning of the funnel. Remember, I was talking about awareness at the beginning of the traditional sales funnel. All of these build awareness, and all of this awareness contributes to brand building. Remember your brand being at the heart of the model in Solar 7? All of this contributes to that heart just growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. People develop this this belief and this feeling of an understanding of what your brand is all about, as long as you're getting the right message across. Remember this slide? I'm talking about brand building. So if people are seeing your brand for a minimum of 11 times, that's where your ROI is going to start. So this is the start of the journey. Yeah. So let's talk about measurements further down the line. Really important measurements. Number of leads, that's what we're all measuring, because we know if we're getting leads, we can work on converting them. You want to measure the source of inquiry. Where are these leads coming from? Because if you're not doing that, and if you're not writing it down, or if you're not analyzing that on a regular basis, maybe monthly or maybe quarterly, you may be missing valuable information. Just having a rough idea isn't great. It's good to have this stuff written down. Conversion rate. You want to have a look at what your conversions look like, because you could be getting loads of leads in, and if you're not converting the right number of business, you want to be setting a benchmark of knowing that, right, we need to be converting at least 40% or 50% or 60% or whatever a good average looks like for your industry. And then new versus existing clients. Selling to your existing client base is much easier than pulling in new business. If you've got existing clients that are happy with what you're doing for them, if you have another service that you can put in front of them that is going to add more value to them, they are much more likely to buy from you, because they already trust you, they already know you. And this also is a form of marketing. Your customer service and offering good service, it just means you're going to retain them longer. Remember, we were talking about the funnel retention. The retention side of things is, if you're retaining customers and delivering a good service, you're just going to retain them longer. And these are the things that lead to ROI, but they cannot operate exclusively from the brand building and all the metrics, the measurements I've just shown you on the previous slides. So let me give you an example. Mitchells & Mansfield are a client of ours. They are a haulage company based in the Midlands. We've worked with them since 2019. They have roughly 100 staff, and they've been going for almost 60 years. So for these guys, we created a marketing strategy. We designed and developed their website. We look after their SEO, and we look after their social media. Now, the inquiry when they contacted us started with website design and development. The MD contacted us and said, we need a new website. We like the work that you do. Can we have a chat? And I said, why do you need a new website? And he said, we want more inquiries. And I said, okay, well, let's have a sit down. And I talked him through the whole Solar 7 model, and he got it, and he understood, right, we need to start with a strategy. There's no point creating a website, because that's just a tactical thing. There's no point creating a website if we don't have the strategy that glues it all together. And the reason I'm telling you this is it's an example of how often we spot the tactics first, and we think, right, let's go straight for the tactic for the website or for the social media or for the email marketing. But if it's not aligned through a strategy, then it's not going to perform in the best possible way. The result for these guys, after working with them for 7 years, is they've had 10% year-on-year growth over 7 years. Now, this is in a very difficult climate that they have been operating, and we're very proud to have been able to contribute as a part of their team to develop this for them. So, a couple of things to consider. You need to consider long-term value. Things like brand building or customer lifetime value. If you're investing in your marketing and you have SEO, you're having SEO done or social media, and you're concerned about the results that are coming through, it is a long-term play on some of the things that you're working on a lot of them, to be honest. If you convert something, say a year in after doing SEO, and that client turns into whatever amount of money, and then over the next 10 years, you continue to sell to them, you've got to factor in that somewhere down the line, this needs to be attributed against whatever work or resource has gone into that initial bit of marketing. And then also, as attribution becomes a lot harder, it can be difficult to accurately attribute sales to a particular marketing activity or channel. As I mentioned, think about the messy middle. People don't just go to social media, to your website, and then make the inquiry these days. They don't just go from Google to your website and make the inquiries. They will jump around. So you might be actually spending money in various places. Yes, with SEO, you can probably attribute direct sales there. But with organic social media, it's a lot harder. And with PR, it's even harder to attribute that. But if you remember what I was talking about with the brand building, that is a thing that needs to happen in order for that sale to come through. So it's something that you've got to be very considerate about, and you've got to really kind of get a good feel for the things that are working, because some of them are not directly attributable. So, a quick task, something that you can do in your own time. You can use Solar 7 as a model to actually use as a measurement of where your marketing is at. So, here I've put some hypothetical numbers in, and I've created a scoring system where basically you would score each of the activities out of 10. Say if you're going to score each activity between 1 and 3, it's red. If it's between 4 and 7, it's amber. And if it's 8 upwards, it's green. So in this hypothetical situation, I've scored the strategy at 5, the branding at 7, so that's amber, the website at 8, each of the channels at various, so social media and email marketing at 5, advertising at 3, SEO and pay-per-click at 2, on PR at a 1, and then review and measure, an 8. So in this circumstance, let's say this company is happy with its website and they're measuring everything really well. You can see where the weak spots are, but also, you might think here, okay, PR is a 1. We don't do PR, or it's terrible what we do. We don't do enough of it. You might think, okay, actually, let's have a look at that and start focusing resource there. But if your strategy score is low, if it's not in the green or close to the green, this is what you need to tighten up, and that's what will cause these numbers to increase and lift, which will ultimately lead to a higher ROI. So if you score your own business based on the structure that I've just described, that should give you a really good insight on where you need to focus next. So one final takeaway. Remember that ROI is a byproduct of alignment, not tactics. So you can have all of your tactics and you could be doing loads of stuff. It's about the alignment, and that's where the strategy comes in. It needs to be aligned with your target audience and the messaging, and that needs to filter through in all these channels, depending on whatever their little quirks are and whatever their algorithms want to see. Thank you, folks. If you have any questions, please do drop us a message via our contact form on our website, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.